When a woman is genuinely interested in a man, communication flows effortlessly. She finds ways to stay connected, to share her day, her thoughts, her emotions, even the small, mundane moments. Not because she has to, but because she wants to. It's part of how we, as humans, build emotional intimacy, and women, in particular, are deeply attuned to emotional availability. So, when a woman's communication style changes, especially if it becomes colder, shorter, or more infrequent, it's not just a coincidence. It's not she's busy. It's not she forgot. It's a shift in emotional investment, and if you're not paying attention, you'll miss what that silence is screaming. Now, this doesn't mean every late reply or missed call is a sign she's checked out. Life happens, people have moments, but patterns tell stories. A woman who was once quick to respond, who used to light up your phone with thoughtful texts, calls, or voice notes, doesn't suddenly stop unless something inside her has shifted. And here's the deeper psychological insight. People, especially women, tend to withdraw gradually. They don't always confront their feelings head on. Instead, they start pulling away emotionally first long before they ever say it out loud. Why? Because detachment begins with emotional self-protection. If she's unsure, conflicted, or even quietly losing interest, she may not want to hurt you, or she may be unsure herself. So she withdraws communication as a form of internal testing. Do I miss him when I stop talking to him? Do I feel lighter without these conversations? That's what's often happening behind the scenes when her replies grow colder. But let's take it even further. Emotionally mature women do not communicate out of obligation, they communicate from desire. So if she's into you, you will feel it. Her communication will feel like an invitation, not a chore. There will be warmth, openness, even playfulness. And when that disappears, it's often because the emotional connection has already begun to fray. This is where many men get it wrong. They start to chase harder, they double, text, they call more, they mistake silence as something to be fixed rather than observed. But wisdom lies in observation, not reaction. When communication shifts, pause, ask yourself, is she withdrawing because of something specific, or has the emotional current changed? The truth is, people make time and space for what matters to them. Communication is not just words, it's energy. It's presence, it's emotional availability. So when her texts turn into single word replies, or she starts forgetting to call you back, or stops asking about your life, your dreams, your day, that's not a glitch, that's a signal. And here's the empowering part. When you recognize the shift, don't beg for clarity, create it. Don't seek validation, stand in self-respect. Sometimes the best response to emotional distance is not pursuit, but pause. Because the moment you learn to honor energy shifts instead of resisting them, you unlock one of the most powerful truths in human connection. Silence is a form of communication too. Let that truth guide you, not to resentment, but to clarity, not to fear, but to freedom. ChatGPT said, another clear sign that a woman may no longer be interested, or at the very least, that something has shifted emotionally, is her body language. While words can be curated, polite, even misleading at times, the body never lies. Human beings are constantly communicating through nonverbal cues, and when it comes to attraction, those cues are often louder than words. When a woman is genuinely into you, her body moves toward connection. She leans in when you talk. Her eyes hold your gaze just a little longer. She might touch your arm lightly during conversation, or her posture opens up in your presence. These are instinctive, subconscious signals of comfort and interest. She positions herself to be near you not just physically, but emotionally. She faces you fully, her body open, engaged, and alert. You'll notice smiles that aren't forced, laughter that comes easily, and a relaxed rhythm in the way she interacts with you. But when a woman begins to emotionally detach, her body language follows suit. She may cross her arms more often, a subtle barrier signaling defensiveness or disconnection. She might start keeping more physical distance or angle her body away from yours in conversation. Eye contact fades. Smiles become less frequent, and when they do appear, they feel polite, performative rather than heartfelt. Even the tone of her voice might shift, becoming more neutral, less playful, less expressive. And here's the key psychological layer. Body language is governed by the limbic system, the part of the brain responsible for emotion and instinct. That means a woman doesn't have to think about pulling away. Her body simply responds to how she feels internally. This makes nonverbal cues incredibly honest. They're not filtered through logic or social obligation. They just are. Many men miss these signs because they're focused on what's being said rather than how it's being said or shown. She might still be replying to messages. She might still agree to meet up. But if her posture has shifted, if her presence feels distracted, guarded, or tense, then you're likely engaging with someone who's no longer fully there. Not emotionally, not intimately, there's also something to be said about energy. We can sense when someone's energy feels inviting versus when it feels closed off. A woman in love or in interest radiates openness. You feel welcomed, but when that interest fades, her energy withdraws like a tide pulling back from the shore, silent but unmistakable. So here's the insight you need to carry forward. Pay attention to the body, pay attention to the energy. If it no longer feels open, warm, or welcoming, don't ignore it and don't try to force it. The body speaks the emotional truth before the mind ever decides to verbalize it. And in relationships, it's not just about learning how to read signals. It's about having the self-respect to respond to them with grace. When her body language tells you she's no longer fully present, that's your cue to become fully present with yourself. Because clarity isn't always spoken, it's often shown. And the wise man listens with more than just his ears. Another subtle but telling sign that a woman may no longer be as invested in you as she once was lies in the shift of her communication patterns. Human connection thrives on emotional engagement, and one of the clearest indicators of interest, or the lack of it, is how consistently and intentionally someone chooses to connect through conversation. It's not just about if she communicates, but how she communicates that reveals everything. When a woman is interested, you feel her presence even when she's not physically there. She checks in. She remembers small details. There's enthusiasm in her words, depth in her responses, and effort in the back and forth. Her texts have tone, curiosity, and care. Her voice carries warmth. Conversations feel alive. She's present. But when she begins to emotionally withdraw, the contrast is stark. Her replies become delayed, often generic, sometimes dry. You find yourself initiating most of the time, and when she does respond, it's with the kind of minimal effort that makes you wonder if she's just being polite. The rhythm becomes one-sided. You're always reaching, and she's always retreating. And this isn't always about time or busyness. Everyone has responsibilities. Everyone gets distracted. But genuine interest finds a way to express itself. A woman who's into you will find small windows to say, "I'm thinking about you," even if it's just a short voice note or a brief message. She'll want to maintain the thread of intimacy, even through the chaos of life. This is where it becomes a test, not just of how well you know her, but how well you're willing to know yourself. Because sometimes we cling to hope wrapped in inconsistency. We tell ourselves she's just going through a phase, or that maybe she's testing us. We rationalize the distance instead of accepting the message. When someone stops communicating in meaningful ways, it's not an accident. It's information. And here's the deeper truth. Consistency is not just a sign of affection, it's a reflection of alignment. If she's aligned with you emotionally, if she sees a future, if she still feels that spark, her communication will reflect that. You won't need to decode or chase it, but if she's emotionally drifting, her silence or her surface level responses become her loudest message. This doesn't mean you react with bitterness or blame. It means you honor what her energy is showing you. It means you choose dignity over desperation. A woman pulling away doesn't diminish your worth. It simply redirects your attention to where your energy is no longer reciprocated. Because in love, words may begin the conversation, but effort sustains it. And if you're the only one trying to keep it going, maybe it's time to stop talking and start listening to what the silence is telling you. Ultimately, communication is not about frequency, it's about intention. And when that intention fades, don't try to reignite it alone. Instead, recognize the message beneath the noise and let it guide you towards someone who will speak to you with clarity, consistency, and care. One of the most overlooked signs that a woman is no longer emotionally invested in a man is the erosion of physical closeness, not just intimacy, but the casual, everyday expressions of affection that once came naturally. When a woman is into you, her body language often betrays her emotions in the most beautiful way. She leans in, she touches your arm when she laughs, she makes eye contact that lingers just a bit longer than usual. Proximity, even subtle, becomes a tool for connection, but when that energy shifts, so does her physical presence. It's not always loud or dramatic. In fact, it often begins in the quietest of ways. She used to rest her hand on your thigh while sitting beside you. Now she folds her arms. She used to cuddle in close on the couch. Now she sits on the opposite end, phone in hand, distracted. She avoids kisses without saying no, makes excuses to avoid intimacy, and even when you touch her, the energy feels different. You can sense the emotional wall forming, even if no words are spoken. And the psychology behind this is deeper than most assume. For many women, physical closeness is a direct extension of emotional safety. When she feels connected, understood, and appreciated, she naturally wants to be close. Her body reflects her heart, but when that emotional connection begins to fade, when resentment, disappointment, or disinterest begins to build, she instinctively creates distance. It's not manipulation, it's emotional self-protection, a subconscious need to pull back from what no longer feels nourishing or safe. This is where many men get confused. They think maybe she's just tired, maybe it's stress. And while those things do play a role, consistent physical withdrawal, especially when paired with emotional detachment, is rarely accidental. It's a signal, a quiet one, but one that speaks volumes. Now here's the part many don't talk about. When a woman pulls away physically, she's not necessarily waiting for you to chase her harder. In some cases, she's waiting to see if you even notice, if you'll stop long enough to ask, not from a place of entitlement, but from genuine care. She's testing not just your awareness, but your emotional maturity. And if the answer is more pressure or frustration, rather than presence and conversation, the disconnect grows. So what do? You observe without denial, you ask gently, you listen not to respond but to understand. And most importantly, you resist the urge to earn back affection with performance, because true connection isn't about getting someone to touch you, it's about creating a space where they want to. The way a woman responds to your presence says everything about how she feels in your presence. And when her body starts to move away, when her touch fades, her eyes avoid yours, her embrace weakens. It's not always because she's done. Sometimes she's simply exhausted from carrying the emotional weight alone. The truth, physical distance, often begins where emotional connection ends. So pay attention. Her silence may be loud, her distance may be deliberate. And if you're brave enough to confront that truth with honesty, you might either repair what's broken or finally let go of what's already gone. Another deeply revealing sign that a woman may no longer be emotionally invested in you is how she responds to your emotional needs. And I don't mean the grand, dramatic moments of breakdown or conflict. I'm talking about the everyday cues, the moments when you're vulnerable, frustrated, excited, or simply reaching for connection. In a relationship where emotional intimacy is alive and well, a woman who loves you will lean in not just physically, but emotionally. She will want to understand you, not always to solve, but to witness, to validate, to support. But when that emotional reciprocity begins to fade, it's usually not loud. She starts to seem less curious about your feelings. Your highs don't excite her the way they used to. Your lows don't concern her in the same way. You might share something that bothers you, and instead of presence, you're met with indifference, or worse, deflection. Her responses grow shorter, her gaze more distracted. She stops asking follow-up questions, stops digging deeper, and without saying it, she communicates that your emotions are now burdens rather than bridges. Psychologically, this shift is rooted in disengagement. Human connection thrives on emotional mirroring, a dance of vulnerability and presence. But when a woman begins to detach, she unconsciously pulls back from the very dynamics that once made her feel close to you. Why? Because love is an investment, and when that investment starts to feel risky, unrewarding, or simply draining, she retreats. Not always out of cruelty, but self-preservation. This is where many men feel confused. They sense the withdrawal, but don't know how to name it. So they try to be strong, avoid bringing it up, or act like they're fine, only to end up feeling more invisible with every passing day. But silence in the face of emotional abandonment doesn't breed connection. It breeds resentment. And before long, both people are living in a relationship that feels more like a polite arrangement than a soulful partnership. Here's what's important to understand. Emotional detachment doesn't always look like anger. Sometimes it's politeness. Surface-level niceties. She might still respond to your texts, still share space with you, but the energy is cold. The empathy is gone. And the worst part, she may not even realize how far she's pulled away until it's too late. So, what can you do? You don't beg, you don't chase, you bring presence, you ask directly but gently. I feel like we've been emotionally disconnected lately, and I miss how it used to feel between us. Have you noticed that too? And then you listen, not just to her words, but to her tone, her energy, her body language. If what you get is defensiveness or apathy, you've just received your answer. A woman's true investment in you isn't measured by how much she smiles at dinner or how often she laughs at your jokes. It's revealed in whether or not she holds space for your inner world. When that space starts to close, and your emotions are no longer welcome, that's not just a phase. It's a warning. The truth is, when someone stops showing up for your emotional needs, they've already started showing up somewhere else, maybe for themselves, maybe for someone new, or maybe in search of the version of herself she lost along the way. Whatever the reason, ignoring that silence doesn't protect the relationship. It only prolongs its decay. One of the most overlooked but telling signs that a woman may no longer be emotionally invested in you is her lack of future-oriented conversations. When a woman is truly into you, when she sees you as someone she wants to build something meaningful with, she naturally includes you in her plans. She speaks in we, and not just I. Whether it's as small as suggesting a movie next weekend or as significant as discussing long-term goals, there's a quiet undercurrent of continuity, of shared life, of time stretching forward together. But when that interest begins to fade, so does her vision of the future with you in it. The conversations become more rooted in the now, or even the past. Her language shifts from inclusive to individualistic. You might start hearing things like, "I just want to focus on myself," or "I'm not sure where I'll be in a few months." She stops asking you about your dreams, your timeline, your plans, and she certainly doesn't talk about how you both might align in those paths. It's not that she suddenly loses her capacity to think ahead. She just stops projecting you into that horizon. This shift is often subtle. She might still be kind, still show up in the day-to-day, but the vision has changed. And when a woman can no longer picture you in her future, her emotional commitment to you in the present begins to unravel. Because we psychologically invest most deeply in people we can see ourselves evolving with, the absence of that forward thinking lens is not just circumstantial, it's psychological detachment. Some men ignore this, they rationalize it. She's stressed, or she's busy, or she just needs time. And while all those things can be true, they often serve as convenient shadows behind which emotional disinterest hides. The truth is, when a woman is into you, even in her busiest seasons, she finds subtle ways to reassure you of your place in her world. When that stops, it's not about time, it's about intention. Now, it's also worth noting that not every woman knows why she's pulled back. Sometimes emotional detachment happens gradually, quietly, even unconsciously, but her language will always betray her clarity or her confusion. Listen not only to what she says, but to what she avoids saying. If talk of the future makes her uncomfortable, if she dodges commitment-based dialogue or keeps everything vague and noncommittal, it's a clear signal. Not necessarily that she doesn't like you, but that she may no longer see the two of you as a lasting equation. And that's not something to resent. It's something to observe and respond to with self-respect. Because staying with someone who no longer sees a future with you is like watering a plant that's already been uprooted. You'll only exhaust yourself trying to keep something alive that no longer has the roots to grow. If she doesn't see you in her future, it's time to start protecting yours.